It was a short circuit that blocked the rejuvenating, transforming light of our Holy Christ cells from reaching the cells and organs of our physical bodies. That is why our bodies run out of energy and disintegrate and die, because we are not connected to the divine DNA, which is what they said when Eve and Adam ate from the tree. That's when they started to die. They took away that constant rejuvenating energy. This reconnection of circuitry actually means that we are now, at long last, physically reconnected to our Holy Christ selves and our divine RNA DNA patterns of limitless physical perfection. Even though we're not exactly showing it all the way, it has been done on higher levels. And I'll get into, again, why we can't exactly see it yet. Okay, so with the fall, we lost the ability to be effective caretakers of the earth. Instead, we became the earth's nemesis. On October 12th, 1992, was the 500th anniversary of what was called the discovery of the New World by Christopher Columbus. It was also the 500th anniversary of the vision of Our Lady of Guadalupe, and it was the completion of the 500-year cycle of darkness of the Mayan and Incan civilizations' calendars. All this was on October 12, 1992. It also brought to fruition our 500-year period of grace. That is also when that came to an end. This global focus on the new world and new beginnings created an open portal that for a brief span of time merged heaven and earth. This allowed our Father, Mother, God to transfer the 12 solar aspects of deity into the physical axis of earth, increasing her light 1,000 times, 1,000-fold on that day. This was the beginning of the permanent golden age. After the miraculous God-victorious success of the recent past, the force of cosmic evil became desperate in its attempt to regain control of the earth. The activities of light were a catastrophic blow to the plans of cosmic evil, and it knew it had to redouble its efforts. The company of heaven knew that the healing effects of the rare conjunction of Neptune and Uranus back in 1993 was a huge alignment that happened then. And the year 1993 numerically adds up to the master number vibration of 22 also. So 22, as we know, is a big number because it's my birthday. Okay, so in order to ease our pain and move us very quickly through the negative challenges we were going through, we were given an opportunity of incredible mercy and compassion. Our Father, Mother, God opened a door to limitless solar transmutation that had never before been experienced in any physical dimension. This was the initial impulse of divine intervention we had been told would occur during Earth's final purge and cleansing. So, I'm just going to sum up where we are. This is Earth's final purge and cleansing before we are done with that stage. The critical factor in this intention was that in order for the fifth dimensional frequencies of limitless solar transmutation to be effectively integrated into our third dimensional experiences on Earth, the only way this could happen is they had to be consciously drawn through the heart flames of light workers who had come on Earth in physical form. That was why they came on Earth. They had to come to be that bridge. Otherwise, even though this blessed light was pouring into the atmosphere of Earth, we would not have received its miraculous benefits in our daily lives. The people on Earth, without the light workers, just didn't have the ability. The light workers needed to be the bridge. Now, for the first time since the fall of man, we were reunited with our Holy Christ presences. So, as you focus on the positive times and revel in the good things going on in your life, your Holy Christ self will integrate the light of your solar Christ presence even more. Each day, the scales will tip toward Christ consciousness, and your life will just get better and better. It's not going to be given to you. You have to do the work from the inside. Being reunited with our divine selves has opened doors of opportunity we have never dared to dream were possible. And it is critical that we take the necessary steps to integrate our solar Christ presences into our daily life experiences with every thought, word, action, and feeling we express. Once the solar Christ presences of all humanity had greater access to our holy Christ selves, our increased light began to push anything that conflicted with the Christ to the surface to be transmuted and loved free. This allowed the plan that the company of heaven had devised to block cosmic evil's attempt to sabotage our ascension in the light to be implemented. So when we observe the negativity surfacing in our individual lives, it's very difficult for us to hold on to the belief and inner knowing that we are co-creating heaven on earth. But nevertheless, that is exactly what we are doing. You are just detoxing, if you will, all the negativity occurring in your lives and on earth. Heaven on earth has already been victoriously accomplished in the divine realms of cause. There's different levels of cause of the realms of cause and the physical plane that we're on. So it's already been accomplished on that level. Now all we have to do is hold the vision in our own consciousness and through our thoughts, words, actions, and feelings, magnetize that perfection into the world of form. Because we have been struggling with evil for so long, we can't even fathom what life would be like without the mutated energies. I promise you, however, in the not too distant future, you are going to have the glorious opportunity to experience life on earth without those maladies of poverty, disease, war, crime, pollution, hate, fear, etc. That is what they say. This is not me promising that, this is them. The critical need of this momentous hour is for the masses of humanity to awaken to the opportunity at hand. This blessed planet and all her life are ascending into the fourth and fifth dimensional experience of an unlimited, timeless, spaceless, solar reality. As I said, the Earth, or maybe I didn't say that yet. I won't say that yet. The winter solstice has always been perceived as the holiest night of the year, last night, since it heralds the return of the sun, the light to earth. So the darkest, shortest day of the year is the winter solstice, when the darkness is at its darkest hour. From then on, each day the light increases more and more. That is the significance of this, why it is happening at this time. The earth is a living, breathing organism. She is cleansing and purging herself just like we are. As the earth ascends in frequency and vibration, the discord is pushed to the surface for purification. Even though we are experiencing some powerful purging and releasing techniques of nature like tornadoes, hurricanes, fires, floods, volcanic eruptions, and extreme weather conditions, there has been relatively little loss of life compared to what there could have been. We are now changing. We are now transforming our physical realities at an atomic cellular level into heaven on earth. And this is just the beginning. We have moved off of the wheel of karma and returned to our spiral of evolution when the earth's axis re-straightened. We are daily and hourly ascending into higher frequencies of God's perfection. And you know, a lot of times you can't see this day to day, but if you think about the decades, you can clearly see how different we are from the 60s, or the 70s, or the 80s, or the 90s, or even the 2000s. You can clearly see in the TV shows what everyone looked like, you know. Even the way Michael Jackson used to dance when he first started out was far different than how he danced at the very end. He was a slow dancer in the beginning, if you have any of his videos. Not when he was a little child, but when he was like 20. So on May 10th, 1994, during a new moon solar eclipse, the likes of which will not occur again until the cosmic year 2012, this is being called the cosmic year, the light of God perceived deeply into the depths of human miscreation and activated within the dregs of human existence and fallen laggard energies the remembrance of divinity. So in 1994, that was when the fallen souls were actually revivified, that Earth had volunteered to help out in 1994. Some of them actually didn't make it, but they went to another planet and they're going to start over again as cavemen. But there was a huge chunk that said, no, okay, we're really going to get serious and we really want to try, and they actually succeeded. So now having this information is one thing, but intellectual knowledge is useless if we can't integrate what we know and live out of that illumined truth. It's very easiest for us to turn on the television or read a newspaper and say, if all this glorious stuff is really happening, why do things look so bleak? The answer to that question is that our transformation is a process. As I said, if you look at the decades, you can see how far we're coming. And if you look at technology, you can see how far we're coming. We are multidimensional beings functioning on all levels of consciousness at once. We're not just in this dimension, in other words, we're in many. And it's all superimposed at the same time, on the same place, the same location. The change first begins in the realm of cause, and then it filters through the various octaves of reality into physical manifestation, or what we call the world of effects. The physical plane, which we perceive to be reality, is actually the least real of all the dimensions of consciousness we abide in, and it is the very last dimension to reflect the change. It's the only one that has not fully reflected the change. It takes time for the magnificent changes occurring on Earth to filter into physical manifestation. As the new frequencies of harmony and perfection begin to penetrate into the core of purity within all physical matter, they push the conflicting negativity to the surface for purification. This is like putting a pot on the stove to boil and all of the scum boils up to the surface. That is what is occurring on Earth at the present time, and that is why everything seems so horrific in our own personal lives as well as globally. We are in the midst of the birthing process, and the labor pains are intense, but the results will far surpass our greatest expectations. We have stopped our descent into oblivion, and we have begun our ascent into the original divine intent for this planet, which is heaven on earth. All of the unified efforts of heaven and earth have gone into raising our vibratory rate up in frequency to the point where the communication system with our God selves will be restored. That takes raising your frequency. If we're too dense and too low, and they're too high, we just can't connect. On August 18, 1994, in the realms of cause, our 12 solar strands of DNA were rewoven in total perfection. Every vibration less than divine love is being pushed to the surface and transmuted back into the light. As this activity built in momentum, the area in our lives that were not expressing their highest potential became painfully obvious. We became blatantly aware of problems in our self-esteem, our relationships, finances, health, jobs, and every other facet of our physical realities. We were not able to continue our old patterns of suppression and denial this time, however. We weren't given the luxury of pretending everything was all right when in fact our lives were in shambles. Now the important thing for us to understand is that we are creatures of habit, and we have the choice to stay stuck in our old patterns of limitation, but we now also have the absolute ability not to stay entrapped in the bonds of our human egos. On March 21st, 1995, a moment in time that had been predicted for hundreds of years by various groups of people occurred. It was a time when we reached the critical mass for limitless physical perfection. That means that the pre-encoded divine blueprint within the RNA, DNA genetic codes for all manifest form reached the point of activation that will assure the physical manifestation of heaven on earth, and nothing can stop it. We reached critical mass in 1995. As usual, our experience of the event will be individual and unique to each of us. Our physical transformation is unique. No two people have gone through the same experience to create the maladies reflecting in their bodies and their lives. And no two people will have the exact same process in transforming their bodies and lives into perfection. Unfortunately, our hearts and feeling natures didn't expand at the same rate our intellectual capacities did. So consequently, we also have an exponential growth in pollution, crime, governmental corruption, disease, poverty, dysfunctional families, war, and general human suffering. The good news is that we are beginning to really understand the imbalance between our hearts and our minds, and we are now involved in a cosmic push to reverse that trend. Legions of people all over the world are saying, wait a minute, enough is enough. We have to start accepting responsibility for our earthly condition, and we have to do something to save this planet and turn our lives around. The fact that this awareness is awakening in the hearts and minds of the masses is not a coincidence. I know that during this unique moment on earth, you are experiencing the gamut of trials and tribulations. In truth, we are all standing on the threshold of the greatest leap in consciousness ever experienced in any system of worlds. And I hope that sinks into you. The greatest leap in consciousness ever experienced in any system of worlds in the universal history. That's where we're standing.